Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the April Sandhouse meeting. It's our pleasure today to present Mike Noland. Mike is the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Northern Indiana Commuter Transportation District, which operates the passenger service on the South Shore Line. The South Shore Line at one point was a member of the industry, the electric interurban railway industry, that had some 16,000 miles at one point in our history. The electric interurbans were the transition from the horse to the motorized vehicle, and it particularly opened up a lot of rural areas, and there's been studies of university studies of the impact that the interurbans had on rural life and the changes that it existed. The South Shore ran its first train between South Bend and Michigan City on June 30th, 1908. In 1925, it was acquired by the Insull Interests and underwent a huge rehabilitation that built it into what some people refer to as a super interurban. Today, in 2021, the South Shore Line is the only surviving member of the electric railway interurban industry. And almost 100 years later, they are embarking on huge capital projects, which Mike is going to describe. His bio is in the announcement, so we won't read any of that. And with that, Mike, please start and tell us what you are up to at NICTD.
Well, thank you, Norm, and thank you to the Sandhouse gang for inviting me to present today. It's been a couple years since I've been before the group, and it's an exciting time, and I'm really pleased to be able to give this update. I'm going to try to share my screen here. I've got a PowerPoint presentation that I'll walk through, and then I'll try to leave sufficient time for any questions that may come up. So here we go. Let's see here. There we go. There's that. And all right, Joan, can you see my screen?
Looks great.
All right, there you got the high level graphics there. But you know, Norm asked me what the title for my presentation would be, and I thought about it for a little bit. And you know, we've been talking for a long time about the major capital investments we're about to make in the railroad. And it's always been, if we can get this done, if we can secure the local funding, if we can get past the environmental, if we can get a full funding grant agreement. Well, we're no longer at that point in time. We're now going to be apologizing for the construction dust that we're about to cause here in great amounts of Northwest Indiana. I thought I'd throw this slide up here. This is our service route. We run from 90 miles from South Bend, Indiana, from the international airport there, where we enter on the east side of the airport, and then traverse all the way through 75 miles or so on right-of-way that we dispatch, mostly own and maintain, and share with our freight partner, South Shore Freight. And then we jump on the Metro system at 115th and Kensington, where we run for our last 15 miles and our good friends at Metro. And so that's our service route. There's 13 stations that are South Shore stations, starting from Hagestad, which is Metro service in Illinois, and then running all the way to South Bend Airport. We do make a couple stops at 63rd Street. We stop at the University campus at 57th Street. And then as we get into Chicago Museum campus, 11th Street, Van Buren, and Millennium Station. I always like to show this slide to my friends in Northwest Indiana when we talk about why we want to do some of these projects, and we look across to the west with envy to the Metro system. I joke that you can hardly throw a stone and not hit a Metro line as you progress outside the city of Chicago on that hub and spoke system. And it really serves the northeast area of Chicago extremely well, and is such a vital component of the economy in Northeast Illinois. And it's one of the reasons why we've been able to articulate our vision here to our friends in the Indiana General Assembly and other local and county state elected officials. We've got a couple of projects that Norm mentioned that we're moving forward with. First one is the Westlake Corridor project with financing cost. It's $944 million. We just received some additional federal funding. It doesn't change the budget, but it increases the federal share from the American Rescue Plan. As part of that plan, although there's 25 billion coming to transits to assist with operating funds, but there's another 1.5 billion that's dedicated to help fund the capital investment grant program. And that CIG program is what funds major projects like our Westlake project and our double tracking project. And in the Metro history, they funded that project. That program funded the North Central service, the Southwest service, and the triple track, or the extension of the Union Pacific West line. So we got another almost 44 million from the ARP just recently for Westlake. And then for our double track project, we just got another $24.5 million. That project is $495 million with financing costs. I'm going to start off with here's a depiction of the Westlake corridor. This is as we come from Chicago, we cross the state line there at Indiana Harbor, and we're going to move our station, which is our Hammond, Indiana station, which is just to the east of Holman Avenue. We're going to move it west so that that intersects with the start of the Westlake Corridor service that will run 8 miles down along the pathway of the old Monon Railroad that NICTD, Hammond, and Munster purchased some 30 years ago with an eye towards someday developing a commuter railroad. I have to give a tip of the hat to our financing partners. In the center there is all important is the Federal Transit Administration. They are funding a little more than 40% of the project cost. That's in reflection of the additional monies that we just received out of the ARP. We also have funding coming in from our local regional development authority here in Lake and Porter counties. They're funding a substantial portion of the Westlake project, along with the cities in the county of Lake County, as well as the state of Indiana. We're bonding the projects through the Indiana Finance Authority and taking advantage of the state of Indiana's AAA credit rating. So we've got a real partnership between federal, state, and local sources of funding to put these projects together. This is one of my favorite marketing pieces. As I mentioned at the top, we've been talking about if for a long, long time. We're no longer talking about if. These projects are, as the signs say, coming soon to an area near you. Westlake was given a full funding grant agreement last fall. Actually, we signed it on October 28th of 2020, and we give a notice to proceed to our design builder on the project, which is a joint venture between FH Passion and Ragnar Benson construction companies. As I said, it's design build. They took over the project at 30% engineering, and they've just submitted us the 60% plans, which are under review, and they're progressing towards final design here in the next few months. They are already starting with utility relocation. We handled the property acquisition, and between both projects, there's over 400 parcels that we're acquiring. We're well near completion on the demolition activity. Acquired almost all the properties, have completed most of the demolition on Westlake, so that we expect the construction to commence early fall for the Westlake project. So they'll begin really turning dirt. And as I understand the schedule right now from the design builder, they're going to start up in North Hammond, which is the most complex portion of this project. I mentioned that that NICTD, Hammond, and Munster purchased about a 5.5 mile section of right-of-way from CSX back in the late 80s, early 90s when it was being abandoned. But that still leaves a portion of railroad to connect from the north end of the Monon property that we secured and connect up to the South Shoreline. Plus, we also have to build on the Greenfield site at the south end for about 1.5 miles. So the property we're building in North Hammond is going to be significant because most of it's on structure. We're going to go up and over Holman, up and over the NS and IHB, up and over the river there, up and over CSX. And then as I showed in the initial slide, we connect up in North Hammond, and at that location, the South Shoreline will be, the main line will be at grade, and the West Lake will be up in the air. So that gateway station that I showed in the very beginning, where both lines come together, will have an elevated station connected to a at grade station. And so that's really exciting from a Westlake standpoint. And Double Track, that project received its full funding grant agreement in January of this year. So in 90 days or less, we got 2 full funding grant agreements from the Federal Transit Administration. We're grateful to get both of those through the full funding grant agreement pipeline. It's a very extensive process to get through the engineering, the project reviews, the environmental reviews that both projects have. And as I said, both of them are coming soon. Westlake is due to open up in late winter or early spring 25, and Double Track is on target for late summer, early fall of 23. Here in the state of Indiana, it's a very conservative state. We're proud of our fiscal responsibility. And when they took a look at these projects, the question for the legislators from Southern Indiana is, why do we want to invest state of Indiana dollars into this project? And the answer is pretty simple. The projections are that these projects are going to generate in excess of $2 billion in private sector investment along the right of way. It creates 7,000 new jobs. And really key for the state budget was that we are projecting to generate $2 of return of income for every dollar the state has invested. There's a lot of thought and a lot of economic analysis that went into that, but you start with the fact that on average, a South Shoreline rider earns around $90,000 a year. We here in Northwest Indiana are part of that mega economic center of Chicago, and the individuals who can jump on our train and go into Chicago earn on average a 40% higher wage premium they can get for a similar job here in Northwest Indiana. That's an often cited statistic, but it's one that resonates because our residents not only provide a workforce that's important to the city of Chicago, but they then bring back that higher earnings and invest it here in Northwest Indiana. From the state of Indiana or Illinois standpoint, those riders pay Illinois taxes. So it's a very good proposition, I think, for both Illinois and Indiana. And I think the Northwest Indiana, the stronger it is, the stronger the Chicago economy is. The ridership that we are projecting is going to be more than double our current ridership once these projects are completed. And as I mentioned before, that $2 billion of private sector investment is centered around really updated plans on transit-oriented development. The state of Indiana created transit development districts within 1 mile of every one of our train stations, both new and to be constructed, so that communities could trap that or track that revenue and use it for infrastructure investments that support the development. And just here's a slide, and these ridership numbers are pre-COVID, and I want to stress that. But we're looking at going to from 12,000 daily boardings to around 27,600 once we are completed with both of these projects. So it's a substantial increase in ridership, and it's directly tied to the additional service, both frequency and reduction of travel time. And so this is really kind of the picture that we're looking at. Why are we doing the Westlake, and and double track projects. We're looking to attract investment. We're looking to create transit-oriented development, and we're looking to market both Northwest Indiana and the South Shoreline to leverage this massive investment that Northwest Indiana and Indiana is putting in to both of the projects. And there's activities such as zoning activities that are being examined in all the communities to make sure that economic development that could come from this private sector investment is made not only possible, but we're looking at best practices that have been utilized in other areas, whether it's in the TODs that have been created along the metro system in Chicago or other areas around the country where there's been successful TODs. The communities are looking at making sure their zoning regulations support that opportunity. Double track, to get into the details on it, is an investment in about a 26-mile corridor between Gary, Indiana and Michigan City, where today we're largely single tracked. And the driving factor is additional trains. We're running 14 additional trains per day that we're projecting or that we will be putting on service once the project is completed. And the idea is to drive down travel time that will be made possible once we put in the high-level platforms, eliminate the bottlenecks that single tracking provides, put in high-speed crossovers so that we can bypass slower trains or eliminate areas where there's track outages, and eliminate some civil speed restrictions. We're going to reduce travel time from South Bend to about 1 hour and 45, from Michigan City, which is 1 hour 40 today, down to 67, Dune Park, which is Chesterton, from 1 hour 20 down to 52. We know we can make these times. We're running some express level limited stop service today, so we're confident in these travel reductions. 67 minutes is an example from Michigan City. It's going to be a substantial reduction to that community. It's located on the lake. It's got everything going for it. Now we open up and unlock its potential by driving it down to Naperville-like timeframes. So again, here's some slides that show what we're talking about. The bottom left slide is the depiction of Michigan City. Today, as Norm mentioned, we run right down the middle of the street in Michigan City as the last interurban in the country. We got cars going in either directions. There's 33 grade crossings in Michigan City. Crossbuck stop signs are our grade crossing protection. We're going to be separating ourselves in Michigan City from the auto and bike and pedestrian traffic, closing 20 crossings and putting in gates, lights, and bells and a barrier between the auto traffic and the train traffic. So our time through Michigan City is going to be significantly decreased. We're putting in high-level platforms at our main station in downtown Michigan City, which will become our hub. It's going to be the location of a significant investment in a parking structure and retail and restoration of the old historic facade that had been the station and been used as the station for decades. Here's one of my favorite slides is when I try to explain to people what single track railroading looks like. The train on the right is heading to Chicago. The train on the left, the lower left of your screen, is coming from Chicago. And that's our location just to the east of downtown Miller Beach in Gary, Indiana today. Every day, our train that's westbound waits there at that waits there at the crossover, waiting for the eastbound to get out of the way. If we're perfectly timed, we can stay on time. We run around 90% on-time service in the rush. But if anything happens, if somebody sneezes the wrong way, then in that single track territory over 26 miles, things begin to stack up, and we lose our on-time performance right away. And this is one of the main reasons this project is going to be built. Again, here's another aerial artist depiction of our station in Michigan City. Again, you can see the the car there on the screen is one-way eastbound that we're going to maintain on 11th Street in Michigan City, with a separation between the rail system and the automobile traffic. Norm, I'm going to give you a shout out. I was looking for an old picture, because at one point in time there was a passing track in downtown Michigan City, and essentially that depiction is what the service will look like today. The actual the southernmost track is going to be shifted a little bit north, but we'll maintain a one-way eastbound traffic lane, and we'll have 2 tracks through Michigan City, and there's the historic facade in the background. Here's a rendering of what the station is going to look like in the Miller Beach community. There's significant improvements to Miller Beach. We'll be moving we turn some trains that don't go back to Michigan City every day. Currently, we turn them at the Gary Metro Station 4 miles to the west. We're moving that location to the Miller Beach area, where we'll have a 2-track stub siding to operate our turn trains. And so significant, not only are we running 14 additional trains a day to and from Chicago, but because we're moving the turn trains to Miller farther east, more service is being pushed to this location as well. So that's a significant improvement to the Miller Beach community. Westlake is a 8-mile corridor. As I showed you at the beginning slide, it starts up in North Hammond, and we'll have 4 stations on the Westlake corridor service. The Hammond Gateway station is the one at the far north end. We're projecting that's going to be 32 minutes from Hammond Gateway to downtown Chicago. Our next station will be in South Hammond at 173rd Street, which is the location of the old former Monon Railroad. A couple miles to the south, we'll have a station at Ridge Road, off of Ridge Road in Munster. And then the current phase 1 terminus of Westlake is at the Dyer-Munster border. And that will be a 45-minute ride from Dyer-Munster to Chicago. That will be a single-seat ride. We're running 5 trains in the morning to Chicago with 1 reverse commute. And in the afternoon rush, we'll run 5 trains back from Chicago. We're also going to run a 2-train shuttle off-peak evening and weekends on the Westlake that will run up and down the corridor to the Gateway Station in Hammond, where our passengers who want to continue their travels either eastbound to South Bend or westbound to Chicago will get off, go down the elevator, and pick up the South Shoreline mainline service. So we're going to have pretty much day 1 full service on the Westlake corridor between the 5 one-seat rides each way in the morning and afternoon, and the additional, I believe it's another 12 to 15 trains that we're going to be running shuttle trains. So day 1 full service on this New Start, which is unusual for New Start service. Here's a bottom line is the project schedule for Westlake. We had our full funding. If you take a look, and I don't know if you can see it, but under 2020, our New Start's full funding grant agreement was awarded last fall, and revenue service is showing as beginning in early 2025. We are blessed with a governor, Governor Holcomb here in the state of Indiana, who has been a stalwart supporter, continues to be a stalwart supporter of both the Westlake and double track projects. We also had a now retired Congressman, Pete Bisklaski, who spent 30 years pushing for and supporting the Westlake Corridor project. And Governor Holcomb got on board with double track. Congressman Bisklaski supported Westlake, and the 2 of them made a very powerful team in gathering local support on a bipartisan basis to push the both projects forward. People ask me, how did you get 2 full funding grant agreements from the FTA in a 90-day period? And I would say, 1, you get bipartisan support. 2, grassroots support. 3, make sure you have project champions. And in our case, Governor Holcomb remains our project champion, has made these 2 projects central to his vision for the state of Indiana. And he will tell people in the southern Indiana that these 2 projects up in Northwest Indiana are as important to them as the bridge that he is improving that goes over the river into Kentucky. And if he's up here talking to residents in Northwest Indiana, he'll explain to them why the bridge he's rebuilding down in southern Indiana is important to them. He really sees the state as a whole, and he sees the value of the Westlake and double track projects. Here's a map of the corridor. As I said, it's an 8-mile corridor that runs right down the Illinois-Indiana line. Hats off to the people 30 years ago when CSX was selling this property. As those of us in this industry know, many of these sales, when they took place in the early 80s and early 90s, became bike trails, and transforming them back from a bike trail to a commuter line is, well, probably takes an act of Congress. When this line was acquired, it was acquired to be a commuter line. There is a bike path that exists with a specific agreement that it will be relocated. We'll continue it, but the primary purchase, the reason for the purchase of the Monon corridor was for a commuter line. And to those folks who are looking and planning future transit investments, we all know these projects can take some time. So hats off to the people that had the vision in the late 80s and early 90s to preserve this corridor, because today the Westlake project is about to become a reality. Top left is actually all 4 of these slides are depictions of what the Gateway Station will look like. On the top left, you can see a Westlake train up in the air, and then down below at grade is the location for the South Shore line. Another one on the slide, the bottom left, gives you an indication. It's going to be about 12 to 15 feet in the air is where the service will be, and then the Westlake comes down the grade very quickly. And joins up the South Shore line just to the just to the east of the Indiana-Illinois border before we cross the Indiana Harbor Belt. So the Westlake and South Shore join up at that point, and then we'll run into Chicago from our joint service that we share with South Shore Freight on the K&E, and then I'm sorry, not the K&E, on the Illinois-Indiana development corridor there, and that's 6 miles that South Shore Freight owns in Illinois, and then we jump on Metro. Again, I showed this, but what I want to point to here and spend some time on this slide is down to the south. You can see a maintenance facility that's being built just to the south of our parking campus there in Hammond. Locating a maintenance yard isn't always easy. Hammond stepped up and asked us to put it there. We are redeveloping an old industrial area that's going to be better served by having the South Shore yard at that location. And then there's significant potential future development activity that's projected to come in and around this station development. I just throw this slide in. This is a typical platform on the South Shore system. This is if you come to our Dune Park station in Chesterton, this is the design that we're using on both Westlake and Double Track. Overhead canopy, warming shelters, and then heated platforms. And we have had great success with our heated platforms. It eliminates significant amounts of winter salting and plowing. It reduces the wear and tear that the salt and the corrosion damages occurs, and reduced slips, trips, and falls. So we're finding that the heated platforms in our climate especially have worked out well for us, and this is our platform design. I throw this picture in. I think, Norm, this was your photographer who sent this over to us. I'm not sure. It's Mark, I think his name is Loiza. Took some great shots. This is the groundbreaking of the Westlake project. That's me on the far left, joined by Joe McGinnis next to me, who's the commissioner of the Indiana Department of Transportation. And over here on our system, the INDOT commissioner is also the chairman of NICTD. Center there is our governor and project champion, Governor Eric Holcomb. And standing next to him is Don Felsko, who is the chairman of the Regional Development Authority, and then president and CEO of the RDA, Bill Hanna. Bill has now left the RDA and moved on to a position with the White Charitable Foundation, but Bill was our partner for many years in pushing these projects forward. And it was a great day. You can see in the background some construction equipment from FH Passion. And then behind that, a NICTD special train. We ran and got permission from CSX to run a special up on their section of the Old Monon. Our actual service for this line is going to be about 50 feet to the east of the location of that train on our own dedicated right-of-way, but we got special permission to bring that train on. Here's another shot of the special train with the NICTD 1000 and our new paint scheme on one end, and at the other end is our NICTD 1001. And again, thank you to the CSX for making that possible. What we're doing now here, one of the really exciting things that's happening here in Northwest Indiana, and I think we all know there's a significant real estate boom across the country, but in areas in the suburbs and here in Northwest Indiana, homes come on the market and they're sold within hours. We are really marketing our proximity to Chicago and the opportunities that open up. We've got great school systems over here. We got proximity to Chicago. We've got a really good tax climate, and we're looking to leverage the investments that we're making here on the South Shoreline to promote this area of the Chicago suburbs as a really viable opportunity and destination of choice. And I always believe that you know, for a city the size of Chicago, you want to have all of your suburban areas that support your economy strong. And we really have the opportunity to unlock the value here in Northwest Indiana. To that extent, one of the things that we're working on right now is finalizing our draft schedule. Our realtors have asked us for this. They want to be able to articulate the vision to potential buyers as they talk about the fact that, hey, within a couple years, you know, you can see the construction beginning. You can see the new bridges being built, the new stations being built, the rail being laid, the signal systems going in. But what that really means is, you know, what's the potential travel time in my community? So we've got a draft internal schedule that we're finalizing right now, and we intend to publish that for marketing purposes. We'll put it on our website. We're also going to share it with all of our real estate professionals, home builders, commercial builders, so that they have the opportunity to sell the region and sell the investment and the vision and the reality to potential in homeowners and businesses as they consider Northwest Indiana as a destination of choice, as I said. One of the things that we're looking at doing, and this is sort of the futuristic, the future when I talk about what things we can do to leverage the investment, is to take a look at the success that Metro's had in Chicago with the feeder bus systems that are provided by PACE. And that's one thing that we talk about here, is that there's $1.5 billion of investment going in along the rail lines, but that investment opportunity is realized not only by the communities that operate along the line, but the communities that are nearby the line need to share in that as well. And so we started a pilot project with the city of Valparaiso, who's running a connect service to and from their downtown and meeting our South Shore trains at our Dune Park station in Chesterton, Indiana. And that's going to then open up the opportunities to benefit for those citizens of the Valparaiso community to benefit in the opportunities that the enhanced service that we're providing on the South Shore line. We're looking to doing that up and down the line. That is the long-term vision here, or at least when I say long-term, next 5-year vision. We'd like to see really good feeder bus service put in place to extend the benefit of the investments that we're making here on the South Shore line. This was our groundbreaking day. There's Governor Holcomb who gave his view of the importance of these trains. He remains, as I said, our project champion. We're very, very fortunate to have him, and he will continue to advocate for whatever the next vision is to expand commuter rail into Northwest Indiana. I mentioned that the Westlake project, phase 1 goes to Munster Dyer, but in the not too distant future, we're going to begin the planning process for phase 2, which will extend the service farther south to St. John, Lowell, Cedar Lake. We're also looking at potential service to go to connect into Valparaiso. So we're not done with the vision here in Northwest Indiana for commuter rail. We're excited to be at the precipice of the construction on these projects, and both projects will be under construction this summer. The double track project is right now out for bid. It is, we expect bids in on that project here in the next month or so, with a notice to proceed to the builder in late May, with start of construction midsummer. So again, kudos to our governor, and greatly appreciate his support. And then I just want to finish with the discussion of where we are with COVID, because I think, you know, in any presentation that a transit agency is giving these days, we need to reflect on where we've been over the last year and the changes that are coming. One of the real positives that I see coming out of this pandemic is that we now are cleaner than we've ever been before. I tell you what, I know more about sanitization than I thought I ever would know. We've added workforce. We purchased electrostatic sprayers. We've got UV lighting that we're using on a very regular basis to disinfect the cars and kill viruses. Our HVAC systems have been supplemented and improved, and we continue to work with the industry to look at best practices so that when riders are ready to return to service, we're going to be ready for them. And we have a marketing campaign that's directly tied to that. We are already starting to see the signs as people are becoming vaccinated, where there is some return to service. I think we're going to see a dramatic increase in ridership starting late second quarter, early third quarter, as a greater percentage of the population is vaccinated. I certainly know that with the advent of improved technology to work remotely, that our footprint in the brick and mortar 8 to 5 Monday through Friday office setting is going to shift. And as an industry, we need to be ready for that. But I will say this, generally quoting Mark Twain, rumors of the death of transit are greatly exaggerated. And I am very, very excited about the future for our service. I think there's significant opportunities as individuals migrate out away from the central business districts and out to enjoy the opportunities that areas like Northwest Indiana can provide. The vibrancy of Chicago and the Chicago economy and downtown Chicago is going to still be there. And it's going to change, but we're going to change and be ready for it. And so we're really excited here on the South Shore line to take advantage of what the post-COVID footprint's going to look like. And we think our projects are incredibly well timed as we add more service, more frequency, more flexibility, reduced time to market, and a safer service. Now the positive train control is up and running. We think we couldn't be better positioned to enjoy the success here in Northwest Indiana, especially with the investments that we're making. So that's the end of my presentation, Norm. I'll turn it back over to you. I'm going to see if I can unshare my screen here. Let's see. I'm not sure if I did it. Boom. All right.
Hi, Mike. I'm
Thank
Brett
you,
Johnson
Mike.
with the center.
And I will turn it over to Brett. And Brett, do you have the questions?
I do, Norm. I didn't see your face pop up, so I wasn't sure if you were able to join right away. Yeah, Mike, I'm the Senior Associate Director of the center. I'm sorry we didn't get to meet at the beginning. I am going to be reading some questions that have been sent in, so let me start right away. David Kralik has asked, he said, do you know how much was spent by the communities on the Manone purchase 30 years ago?
Yeah, I believe they secured it for around, is less than $1 million. I think around $750,000 is my recollection, Brett. I'll research that number, but there was no more, the freight service was gone. There was no active freight service at the time. I think the last customer was the old Northwest Indiana Times. And so, it was almost a fire sale, if you will. Nothing like it would cost us today to try to acquire that kind of a corridor to start service.
Thanks, Mike. Next question is from Paul Oppenheim, and he asks, does your proposed marketing train schedule have any similarity to the original service plan in which he was involved?
Yeah, I challenged Paul. I brought Paul and George Hardwich, some retired Metro friends, and I tasked them with really 6 years ago with taking a look at what the vision was if we were able to get the investments in the railroad and take a look at the civil speed challenges that we had and where we could invest and what we could do to drive down schedule time. And I will tell you, Paul, that I know you called it the Nassau schedule at the time, but it is borne out in reality. It's very, very close to what you put together, whenever it was in the spring of 2015, 6 years ago. So thank you for that. Thank you for that effort. That really, what we really needed to do when we were trying to articulate why the projects were important and why they were viable economically, we started off with the general investments, where the bottlenecks were. We took a look what the investments would be, but then we put together the schedule, and from the schedule, we took it, we gave it to who people view as the dean of modeling, Bob Woodford, who created the stops model for the FTA. And everybody uses stops now. I think it's stops 2.0. I heard the question from Dave Kralik, so he'd be the one to answer that question. But the stops model is what everybody used. And we had Paul help us with the draft of the schedule. And that's what drove the ridership projections. And then the ridership projections is what drove the economic analysis. So it was an all-important exercise to figure out, it's one thing to say, let's double track or let's put in high-speed crossovers, but you really need to take that and translate it into, what's this mean for me when I get on my train? What kind of frequency of service can I have, and what's my time to market?
Thanks again, Mike. This next one's from Michael Blazek. He says, can you share some information on your rolling stock fleet planning for the expanded service?
Yeah, well, this one, Norm could probably answer this one. Right now today, we have an 82 car fleet. One of the first things that we did when we were doing the planning for Westlake is in order to stay on budget, we decided that we would perform an end-life rehabilitation on 32 of our cars we purchased in 1982 from Nippon Sharyo. All of our fleet is our NS Nippon Sharyo cars. And so we knew that by diverting 32 of our fleet down for Westlake, we're going to have to replace them. We went out to a competitive RFP a year ago. Unfortunately, Nippon Sharyo exited the market, which made it somewhat of a challenge for us, especially since we were only looking for a 26-car order. We were in the market to purchase new vehicles, but we had a discussion with our friends over at Metra, who determined that they, given the nature of the service that's being run today, the fleet that they purchased back about 20 years ago from Nippon Sharyo, they call their Highliner ones, was available to lease to us. And so I actually signed that lease last night to acquire 26 of Metra's HL1 fleet that is the identical twin of 14 cars, because NICTD piggybacked on that very same order from 15 or 20 years ago. So we've added 26 of the Metra HL1s to our fleet. They will actually remain in Metra service because, as I mentioned, we do perform Metra service and picking up our Illinois riders in Hagwish. So we'll just, we will transfer those cars down to NICTD and we'll run those on the system. Long term, we're going to be needing to go out probably for a 50 to 100 car order in the next 10 years or so. So it's not, so this is just we're buying ourselves a little bit of time, but we'll be out in the market here and we'll see how service goes. If service takes off, with that timeline may get accelerated.
Thanks, Mike. Next question is from Arnold Kasemsarn. And Arnold, if I continue to get your last name wrong, give me a call sometime and correct me. He asks, is the Westlake envisioned as a diesel powered line or will it be electric?
Going back to my original discussion, Westlake was originally viewed as a dual mode line. And when we were going to purchase new service, the idea was we'd purchase dual mode locomotives, run diesel until we got to the MED corridor, and then run electric service in. As we all know, Lakefront Protection Orders requires that we run electric, or we're prohibited from running diesel service and certain portions of the lakefront. I think it's north of 35th Street, although I don't remember my exact demarcation line. So we always envisioned that we would have some form of electric, but early on, as I mentioned, we determined we'd rehab our old 1982 fleet, which is electric. So it'll be overhead catenary, DC, 1500 volt DC.
Thank you. Next three questions are kind of land use oriented, Mike. First one is from Bob Johnston, who wants to know if you are using eminent domain to acquire properties.
The answer is yes. As I mentioned, over 400 properties for both projects, 95 residences on Westlake, about 60 or so on Double Track. The remaining are commercial properties and then vacant land. We have the power of eminent domain. Most of, I will say 95% of all the acquisitions have been across the table, arm's length, without the need to go to the eminent domain or through the court system. The residentials have been almost exclusively non-eminent domain, although we do have the power, and that's part of the process. And that has to be made clear up front, is that eventually, if we don't acquire through arm's length, we will go through and use our powers of eminent domain. The properties are being acquired with federal funds. Therefore, the Federal Uniform Relocation Act comes into place. So not only do the homeowners get fair market value for their home, but they also get paid all of their moving expenses, but plus a homeowner gets any any differential in value. So as an example, if you've got a 4-bedroom, 2-car garage home in Hammond that was $100,000 and it's 1,500 square feet, If it takes me another $50,000 to put you in a like-kind home, there's also another payment that goes to the homeowner to put them in a like-kind position. So the Federal Uniform Relocation Act is a very beneficial tool. It's more expensive than state-sponsored or state statutes, but it's helped us to move through this process very, very smoothly. We've had zero really any pushback or public outcry as a result of the activities and the acquisition of these properties.
Great. The next question is from Bon French, who writes, "Great presentation, Mike. Congratulations on your success." His question is related to transit-oriented development. He said, "Is the TOD in the form of apartment complexes, stores, shops, or other businesses?"
Hello, Bon. Thanks for watching. The answer to your question is yes, yes, and yes. Each community up and down the line, as I mentioned, the state of Indiana passed transit development district creation. Each of the communities has the ability to create their own boundaries, like a TIF district along the station footprint, but they design it, and it's to whatever vision a particular community has. Some communities are really going to want to look at density and high, multi-story residential. Others might be more in the town home type category. Others may be looking for mixed use office retail type, or a combination of all of those elements is a possibility. So each community is going to their own standards, is going to choose what they would like to see. But we have given them some of the vision. We've taken them over and we've shown them both in the Chicago area and other areas around the country. The developers are looking at best practices around the country. Really, it's going to be their vision. They'll shape their own communities.
And Richard Byrne asks, "What do you see happening at the Gary, at Broadway, and Clark Road as far as development?"
Clark Road, which is the Gary Airport location, that could potentially be, if we ever were to run service from Valpo, and perhaps along the who's running it right now? It's the Fort Wayne, I believe it's the Chicago, Fort Wayne and Eastern section there. If someone ever put commuter service in along that line, you could easily make a connection in at Clark Road. It's not far. Wouldn't be far to make that happen. That could become a gateway type station. And then also, we're less than a mile from the terminal at Gary Chicago Airport there. So if there were ever to be resumption of commuter service there at the Gary Airport, that station could see further development. For the Gary Metro Station, which is downtown Gary, that station that station needs a complete redesign. Rube Goldberg would have been proud of it. You go up, you go down, you go back up. It needs a new vision, and so I think that's something that we need to jointly work with the Gary community on, a vision for that station as to what it can be. But it is certainly on the list of things that we need to put into our strategic vision for investments in the future.
Thanks for clarifying that location, Mike. We have one last question, unless another comes in during this answer. Well, one just did. So the next one will be from Andrew Fox, who asks, "What are the plans for the short stretch of single track west of the Carroll Ave station?"
So we stopped the double tracking project about a block west of Michigan Boulevard in Michigan City. There's about a mile or so from that point, maybe a little mile and a quarter, that remains between that point and our maintenance shop that we share with my friend Andrews, a former employer, South Shore Freight. We have right now, we're looking at putting together engineering design plans to complete that last section of double tracking. When we got the agreement with Michigan City to double track through the middle of town 5 years ago, We also, as part of that agreement, got them to agree on the design for the remaining section of that project. I'd like to get that engineering going in the very near future, because I'd like to take advantage to any potential additional funds that come out of a potential infrastructure bill that this administration may be supporting. So, we need to be prepared as an industry or other industries. If there's going to be infrastructure funding, you don't want to be sitting on the sidelines if you've got visions or plans to improve your footprint. We would do that with our own forces, likely, or some combination of our own forces to build that last piece of railroad.
Thanks, Mike. Mike, I have one more question that I'll read to you, and I thank you for your time today. After you answer the question, I'm just going to have it turned over immediately to Norm, who can help wrap up. So for this last question is from Adam Kerman, who states, feeder bus to commuter rail is not successful in Northeastern Illinois due to heavy park and ride subsidy and lack of fare integration and service coordination. Will Northwestern Indiana show leadership on this issue with fare integration and service coordination and a guaranteed ride home program so passengers can have confidence in being able to get home if they work late? I don't know, that's the question.
I won't get into the editorial there that Adam just presented on whether or not
the context,
whether or not it's successful, Adam, or what the hurdles are. We certainly want to take the best of what's being offered. And to the extent that there's challenges to it, we definitely want to try to overcome them. But as an opportunity, you first have to have the vision of what the opportunity is, and is there a demand, and do people want it? And if they do, we'll figure out the ways to get it done. So I don't disagree. It's probably not perfect. Nothing is, but we're not going to let perfect get in the way of a good idea. Is what I would say.
Well, thank you very much, Mike, for a very, very good program. And it's kind of interesting that basically 100 years later, you're doing the second really big recapitalization of the railroad to make it even more efficient and make it even much more of a super interurban that they attempted in the 1920s. Just for the record, our photography friend is Mark Lanuza. And Mark, of all things, is a Metra car cleaner who is the official, unofficial photographer for the railroad because he has a professional photography business on the side. And much of Mark's work is starting to appear internationally because he knows how to be, and he's also a safety captain, which makes it really interesting when he goes out and does photography work.
He does great work, Norm.
And I just want to emphasize again that what Mike has brought up, and that I think I can speak on behalf of Metra, that we have a great, great partnership with Mike. He is coming from Metra. It makes that very easy to work with. And we at Metra are very excited to see what is going on his end of the railroad, because we on Metra Electric benefit from what they're doing. And we're working together to even do some improvements on Metra Electric, which we'll probably be hopefully talking about one of these days. But in any event, looking toward the future, Brett and I are working with Justin Zubroff to have, for our May program, a panel on logistics. And certainly today, logistics are a very, very interesting topic. And you just read almost daily in Wall Street Journal and other papers about logistics problems that are out there and the inability to get parts because of the demand that is going on in our economy. So again, thank you, Mike, for joining us today. I think we're going to invite you back perhaps as early as next year to give us an update on construction. And maybe we'll also give a little bit of a history lesson on the South Shore to give some context to what you're doing. But what you are doing out there is what Samuel Insullin is interested basically 100 years ago with the interurban and between the South Shore, the North Shore, and the CA&E and the Chicago Rapid Transit Company. They were in the real estate development business as you are today. That's how you build railroads, and that's how you build passenger riding, and that's how you build neighborhoods. So with that, we will sign off and thank you all for attending and look forward to seeing you in May.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.